The 2022 Major League Soccer season is underway, and your Toronto FC already have the same number of road points as they had on July 6th of last season. So, small victories, even in the draws, as we start what we hope will be a much better and more thrilling campaign on this week's edition of Waking the Red Weekly, presented by Footy Talks. My name is Mitchell Tierney. Head on the show, we'll talk the draw in Dallas. We'll talk some JMR, the home opener, and more Italian rumors as well. We'll also be joined by Kelcey, Brade, host of MLS on TSN, to chat opening weekend and plenty more. But first, the main men, Jeffrey Pinesker of Waking the Red, Michael Singh of the Parlay. Gentlemen, how are we doing this week? We finally had soccer to watch. Well, MLS soccer.
Hey, best league in the world, guys. Best league in the world. How many MLS games did you guys watch? Did you try and get them all in, or just 4 or 5? 2, 3. What's the ratio here?
I was at about like 5, 6. Over the course of the weekend, maybe a little bit more. I as you guys know, obviously I cover for the league, and I'm watching random games just for the coverage. And then on top of that, I don't know what it is about this season in particular. Maybe it's because of the direction Toronto FC is heading, or the buzz around MLS as a whole, but I found myself a little bit more intrigued to watch games around the league this year as opposed to others. And maybe it's a result of the pandemic kind of, at least for some part, looking in a little bit of the rear view, or whatever it is. It just feels this season is a little bit more exciting than other seasons. But yeah, I think it's exciting. It was a good opening weekend, except for the one match that I watched, which was Houston Dynamo Real Salt Lake.
I was gonna say, if you watched 5 games, like, you can count it as 4, because I don't think that really counts as
seriously.
Yeah,
and I can't believe I stuck through that too, because that was really uneventful. Let alone the teams are also, like, no offense to them, they're pretty dull teams. It was bad. But other than that, the LA Galaxy, I thought that was a really good game. Chicharito obviously coming up with that late winner there. The Sounders, they fumbled in an opening weekend, which was intriguing. The New England Revolution, Josie Altidore came on, and he made his debut for that club, albeit it was a draw in that one, thanks to I believe it was a pretty remarkable bicycle kick there by it was Diego Chara or Yimi Chara.
Yeah, it was.
Which one? Yeah,
it was. I think it was one of the. I think it was Yimi Chara, and it was gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. Those kits also, my goodness, do they look nice in real life? Yeah, absolute money. What was the 0-0 draw? Was that the Houston game, or what? Didn't the? Yeah,
well,
okay.
Houston
that
definitely finished 0-0, and that was
a terrible game.
That was so bad.
That was such a bad game. I mean, yeah, we're advertising the quality of MLS, and we're harping on the 1-0 draw that we all watched all the way through. That was absolutely terrible. So
yeah, great stuff from us.
Yep, this is looking for that sponsorship.
Yeah, the start of the season does also kind of bring us into our third season, though, of doing the show. We did obviously start the show back in the MLS is Back tournament in 2020, and things have come a long way from then. There's obviously been a lot of chaos around this team, around this country, the world in general right now, and but yeah, no, it's pretty exciting to start this third campaign with you guys. In some ways, this is sort of the start of our third season as well.
True enough.
That's sentimental there, and big moves in the works. You guys will probably hear some exciting stuff coming down from our end in the next couple of weeks. Stay tuned for that, and we always appreciate everybody's support in the chat and all of our listeners who listen to this afterwards on the podcast. I mean, you guys are why we do this show, and why it's so fun to come on every week and talk about TFC and Canada soccer and all of that. So yeah, stay tuned for hopefully some exciting news on our end.
Yeah, Jeff got picked up by Nottingham Forest.
And they're gonna play me. It's gonna be crazy. I'm actually above Richie on the depth chart. It's crazy. I walked in and they're like, we're gonna put you right above Richie. Can you play outside back? And I was like, sure, why not? Mike, did you notice our
for Richie? Can we just get a moment of silence for what's going on right now?
Yeah, I mean, listen. He had to know. He had to know going in what the situation was. Everybody thinks that they're going to transcend what they already know, but he had to know. He didn't sign this deal, completely. He's not completely blindsided by this. Is at least the impression that I'm getting from those in the know in the Twitterverse. Mike, we buried the lead. Did you notice our new background? We're the community kit now, and you are definitely on one side of it, and I'm on the other, which bodes well for arguments about Soteldo later. Although I think we agreed to never ever mention his name ever again, but I had to do it just once.
Hey, he's doing a lot too, Gurus. I'm just saying.
I was gonna say, Mike, you asked for a moment of silence on a show that Jeff's involved in. What are you thinking? That doesn't happen.
This is our third season. I hate moments of silence. I will find something to vamp immediately, without question. Mitch, Kelcey is here. I see him in the lobby. Just an FYI.
Absolutely.
You bring him on right?
Yeah, let's get to him.
Okay. Yeah. This is always the part I hate because I can't test his audio beforehand. So,
am I here?
He's a pro.
Is the audio working?
There you go.
Oh, awesome. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Now I can exhale. Fantastic.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Now joined by Kelcey Brade of MLS on TSN. How you doing, Kelcey?
Great to join you guys on this Tuesday. Talk a little soccer and what was a pretty fun opening weekend in Major League Soccer for not only us at TSN but just across the league.
Yeah, absolutely. A little less exciting than your usual panel. You know, you don't have one of the best players of Ireland's history and one of the best players of Canada's history. You just have me, Mike, and Jeff. But
hey, I am the new right back for Nottingham Forest. I just wanted,
there you go.
So yeah.
Yeah, no, it was a fun weekend, and yeah, I heard you guys chat about Richie there. Unfortunate what's going on, but hopefully there's a resolution coming that way. But yeah, it kind of stinks because you had all that momentum of him finishing off last season on that high, then taking the national team with that next high, and then all of a sudden it's a pretty big speed bump that he's kind of hit in the last month or so. So yeah, we'll see what happens in the coming weeks or something like that, but hopefully there's a resolution there because you want him to keep on playing. You want him to get those minutes with the national team, and especially with this team going to Qatar and in the fall, like you want him at his very best, and not playing or not even being featured on the bench. I mean, that's not good.
Yeah.
Not good.
No. Kelcey,
I mean, it's weird.
Sorry, I was going to say you just have to wonder about his spot on the upcoming March roster. Does that put that in jeopardy perhaps, because we know how important he is to that team, but this guy hasn't been even featured in match day squads for the most part. So there's a lot of competition now up and coming for that spot there at right back specifically. And you just have to wonder, which is disappointing, but he did sign like a 4-year contract with Nottingham Forest. So this is, I'm sure, is a long-term move, and they're in the battle or in the midst of a battle for finishing in the top 8 or top promotion, 6 there.
Yeah.
And they're in that, but you have to wonder, right?
You do to a certain extent, but the one thing about John Herdman, from what I've gathered, is guys that he's played in the past, he's fairly loyal to. Things would have to go sideways. So maybe he isn't featuring as many minutes or getting as many minutes when he comes back for those 3 games at the end of March. But I still think his place is secure. I mean, that's the one thing about Richie. Like, he's, even from his days in Orlando when he got let go, he's always had that chip on his shoulder. So you give him an opportunity to impress. And I think that's all he really wants with Nottingham, is like, give me that opportunity. Like, let me show you what I can actually do in a match day scenario. Because we know he can do that with the national team. But I mean, it's just a matter of getting those consistent minutes, not allowing his overall endurance and all that sort of stuff to kind of drop, and his match day fitness levels to drop, right?
Yeah. If it's any consolation, the Nottingham Forest supporters are equally puzzled as to why he hasn't had a start yet, because they were super excited when they signed him. Obviously, the guy in front of him in the depth chart is playing out of his mind right now. His name escapes me, but you got to imagine that it's sooner rather than later that Richie gets a shout. And you got to believe, like you said, that if he's presented an opportunity, he's going to take it. And maybe this is all for naught, and we're really freaking out over nothing. I mean, if there was ever going to be a time for him to not start, it's when we've already qualified for Qatar. So
and I guess the other thing is, like, the entire conversation. We've been having this conversation on the women's side for a long time about how many lengths the Canadian women's soccer team has achieved over the last decade. The fact that we're finally doing this with the men's team, and we're upset when our national team players sign overseas and aren't getting the moments that we think are justified based on what we've seen, not only in Major League Soccer, but on the national team scene. Yeah, I think it's a good problem that we have right now, but definitely an issue that I know Richie would want to get sorted out ASAP and get featuring in some matches over there.
I have a theory about that, and I think it's because we see what's happened with U.S. men's national team fans and celebrating guys that are career bench warmers, and we don't want that to happen to us. So we're very worried that might be the case, where suddenly all our guys are going to Europe and we're going to celebrate them, but they don't actually get meaningful minutes. And
Jeff,
we've seen what that's happened.
An opportunity to take a shot at the U.S. men's national.
Nope, never, not ever, not once, not ever.
But I mean,
sorry.
But I mean, Alfonso and Jonathan and Kyle have kind of set that bar really, really, really high, and even Atiba for all those years kind of set that bar so high that now that we think that when we see them all together on the pitch with the national team, that they are fairly equal because they all push each other. They all push each other to be better, and so we expect that every single player is playing a major role in some either European side or MLS side every time they step on the field. And for the most part, over the last couple of years, we've seen that ascension, so that they actually are in every spot that they land, that they're actually getting the minutes they deserve and that they've earned.
Yep, 100%.
Well, speaking of setting the bar high, Toronto FC going into the season set the bar pretty low considering their play last year.
What a segue! What a segue!
It was until you said that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Jeff, see, this is the issue. Jeff always ruins my segues by shouting them out.
I got to have like a code word or something, or just like a look that I give you, so that you know that I know.
It's like segue alert or something like that.
Get me an air horn, segue klaxon, like a morning radio DJ. Anyway, go ahead, Mitch. Ask your question.
Yeah. I think the segue klaxon will throw me off more than you interrupting. But I guess your thoughts on Toronto FC's opening match and obviously an away draw, but I think a lot of positives to take from it.
Yeah, I think there were a lot of positives. The fact that they don't usually go down to Dallas and get anything from those matches, the way that they started, and the rainstorms, that too. That was something else. The entire weather on the West Coast and in Texas this past weekend was kind of messed. But I was impressed with it. I was impressed with the second half more so the first half. It's definitely a game they grew into. My big takeaways, obviously, like Jaquil grew into that game. There were so many questions there. Jacob, I think, on the left side got a little bit more comfortable as the match went on. But Salcedo for me was kind of the big takeaway from that one. He looked great, and even better in the second half. I know that was a tactical change that Bob made there, and I think he and O'Neill, I think, just kind of linked up a little bit better as a partnership at the back. That's not to say that Mavinga won't get his crack again, but I think after what we've seen the last couple of years, especially at the center back position, he's a welcome sight to TFC. And I think the fact that they're going to be fighting for minutes and having those options, at least for right now, with Bob having those options at center back, I think is only going to be a good thing for this club to kind of shore that up. Pozuelo, the first half being defensively was kind of a bit of a mess out there, but when he was able to be freed up in the second half and be able to create and be able to do what he wanted, then you could kind of see that joy come back on his face and in the game. There was a lot of positives. Like how you said, the bar was set pretty low coming into this season, and for them to do that against an FC Dallas side that in many ways is trying to figure itself out as well. But the fact that you look at Toronto, just their preseason, and just still, I don't think having the roster that Bob Bradley wants, obviously with Insigne coming this summer and other additions being made, we know this isn't the final product of TFC that they're trotting out. And it's like, here you go for 34 games. This is what you're going to get. I think there was a lot of positives just for those reasons alone.
I'm going to replace my question with a viewer question. A friend of the show, Rachel Dory, we're just going to get into the VAR thing right off the hop. She wants to know your thoughts on VAR and how it's being used. I mean, it's obvious that clear and obvious is kind of been ignored here. So what are your thoughts on VAR? Because it's not just MLS over the weekend where it had a mare. It was pretty much global soccer, collectively had a big VAR meltdown. So moving forward, what do you think's the solution here?
I don't know why they're trying to fix what wasn't broken. Like, remember when VAR started in Major League Soccer and then it rolled its way out in Europe, and everyone was saying, why don't you do it like MLS? Why don't you do it like like that, and then all of a sudden there's those issues there. The entire officiating of that game was tough to watch because everything kind of seemed like it was. Yeah, I see the thumbs down.
Yeah.
But it was tough to watch because like the first goal, I mean, the build-up play, the pass, like where they start the VAR screen, or Jarvis Marufo had to go have a look at it. The ball had already left, like the freeze frame that they started at. The ball had already left his foot, and he was in an offside position. So part of me was questioning. I know Kevin and Julian had a much stronger take on it. About whether or not they were looking at the exact at the correct offside, or what was alleged to be offside on that one. And then the one on Pozuelo, the more and more I watch it, to me it looks like Pozuelo does go down a little softer than he should have. But at the same time, when you look at the motion of the defender coming in, it's Pozuelo who pops the ball up over him. Yes, it glances his shin, and then he's brought down. So in my opinion, still, it was a missed wing of the ball, like a tackle, and he actually brought Pozuelo down. Whether it was an egregious tackle or a soft tackle that brought him down, in my opinion, it's still a foul. So I know there's different voices around the league right now on that specific Pozuelo one saying that they got the call correct. But I think there was nothing, in my opinion, from either of those two plays that was clear and obvious for the VAR and the assistant VAR to have interceded on that and have Jar Marufo go over. Because you're as referees, you're told, and Howard Webb has said this, and all the co-referees have been told this, like, trust your instinct. We will intercede when something has gone wrong. And their instincts, especially on that one, obviously Toronto got bailed out on the second goal that got peeled back there. But on that one and the penalty, they trusted their instincts, and their instincts were, in my opinion, correct. And there was nothing clear and obvious to have them come back and say, go look at that. Because as soon as he has to step over to that monitor, he's being told in his mind at that point, not by anyone in his ear, but just his own conscience being like, I must have missed something. So now I need to look at it. And if these other people are stepping in to say my decision or my assistant referee's decision was incorrect, then I'm walking over to the screen already doubting that my initial 100% gut instinct and what I went with is incorrect. So it's not a great position to sorry about that, guys. Not a great position to put your referee into in those situations when it's something isn't clear and obvious. And I know I've used that clear and obvious 1,000 times, but that's
that's what's on the box, right? So exactly. No, I agree with you. I think it becomes an ego play, right? Like the second that ref goes to the screen, I mean, generally speaking, they're not going to have the cojones to, when you send them to the screen, it becomes an ego hubris kind of play as opposed to the laws of the gameplay. And I don't much like it. And I agree with you. I think we had it right when we instigated it as a sort of test bed, as a sort of, carrier pigeon or whatever the term is. And now it's sort of gone a little pear-shaped on us. And I think we need to nip that in the bud pretty quickly.
And that's something they might look at it at the end of this weekend, and they might meet again and be like, hey guys, we need to really sharpen what we think is clear and obvious. And I know they're not there yet, but I know they're going to like a centralized location in Atlanta in a couple of weeks where all the matches are going to be fed into the same building. They're going to have different bays set up for the different officiating VAR crews, which I think is important. Then they're going to have an overall supervisor monitoring that. Not that supervisor's coming in and saying what he wants them to do, but at the same time, I think that's an important step in it to maybe have more of a centralized voice than having it broken up in so many different stadiums throughout the weekend.
100%.
If something happens on Saturday, let's say stuff was done just out of Dallas and there's a game in Portland on Sunday, there's already that physical disconnect because of just geography. But if they're all in the same location, there's a better chance for them to say, hey, this is what happened on Saturday. Let's make sure that doesn't happen on Sunday, or at least up your threshold of what you think is clear and obvious.
Absolutely.
Mike, you got a question?
Michael?
Yeah, for sure. And I want to ask you, Kelcey, your impression on Toronto FC's new number 9, Jesus Jimenez. This is a guy who I believe is one of the most under the radar kind of signings here with Toronto SC specifically, and he's playing an important role for the club. So, what was your impressions on him overall?
Yeah, I found that his movement in the second half, and this is not a knock on DeAndre or Shaquille, but they were tucked in a little too much on the right side. So anytime that the ball would get built up to him at the top of the 18 or just inside the area there, they were there kind of taking away that space. When that changed in the second half, especially, I found Jesus had a much more free-flowing game to him where he was able to roam and go where he wanted to. But I've been reading your pumping of his tires, and I agree. Everything that he's done so far in the lead up in training camp, preseason, and to now, I think he is going to play an important role. And I think he's just a different look for this team. I think if he has the opportunity, if the roster, like the same game day roster, the 11 remains the same, and Pozuelo's out there and Osorio's out there, and they're able to start connecting a little bit more, even with Jaden Nelson. And the more they get familiar with each other, I think it bodes well for TFC, especially in the short term, until maybe a more stable solution comes in. But for right now, I think he's providing the stable solution up top for TFC.
I think that's the key,
absolutely.
and that's something they've probably been missing the last couple of years with all the ins and outs with injuries. He's stable, and what I'll add is he's going to have some competition when Iowa Canola comes back, and
that's a good
this
thing,
summer
right?
as
like
well.
You want Io, like when Io gets back up to full health, you want that competition. If Jesus is continuing to play like he has and since joining, and at the same time, I think Jesus would want that as well, because then he's not allowing himself to get comfortable or drop or anything like that. He's going to have someone pushing for minutes and for a spot right there, because we know Io, like. Right now, I would say the likelihood of being on John Herdman's World Cup team is quite low, just because of what he's gone through over the last year. But at the same time, if he comes in and has a hot summer, and he's being pushed by Jesus and others on the team, then maybe that elevates him a bit. But at the same time, I think for Io, most importantly for him, after what's been just an awful year, just with injuries and off-field stuff with myocarditis, is that you just want to see him get back out on the pitch and doing what he actually loves. And until we get that, then you can't really assess Io. But I know he has the hunger inside of him, and I think that's only going to push this team. If he comes back hungry, it's going to take him a while to ramp up to full speed. But at the same time, I think that's only a good thing for TFC.
And just in that same light, that just means that this window right now for Jesus Jimenez is more important for him, because he has a shot here to really get in the good books, I guess, let's say, of Bob Bradley here. But I'll throw it back to you, Mitch, because I know you have another question.
Well, yeah, as much as we like to keep things Toronto-centric on this show, there are two other Canadian MLS teams who played this weekend as well, and who have a lot of interesting storylines. The both of them coming into the start of the season. What are some of those stories that you're looking for from CF Montreal and the Vancouver Whitecaps?
Yeah, for CF Montreal, it was a tough one. They their preseason obviously got going a little bit earlier, training camp, everything like that, as they got ready for Champions League. They played a fairly weak Mexican side in Santos Laguna, but when I spoke to Wilfred Dancy on Friday during our broadcast call, did an interview with him, and I asked him about now balancing MLS and CCL, and that's always been a challenge for MLS teams, especially at the start of the year. So as much as we wanted to see CF Montreal just continue what they did against Santos Laguna and take that down to Orlando, they just weren't able to do it. I mean, Alistair Johnson, in our opinion, played a pretty good game. I know Kevin and Julian kind of ranked him in the 7 out of 10, giving exactly what Alistair Johnson should give you each week. But I don't think they had enough in their tank to that being said, I would argue, and I'm in agreement with Kevin and Julian, that they probably have the deepest roster out of any Canadian side that you should be able to put a player in, and there shouldn't be that much of a drop-off or a noticeable drop-off.
For now.
I look at CF Montreal, and I think for right now, I think it's all in on CCL, which is the correct call. And by all in, I don't mean Josie Altidore all in, where you just throw the kitchen sink, as he was saying a couple of weeks ago, at trying to win Champions League. But I mean, you understand the balancing there, and you see the strengths that CF Montreal has in defending and the quick transition game, but you still wonder where the goals are going to come from. Romel Kyoto can't go nipple twisting or punching or whatever the heck he was trying to do on that on that red card there. Like that's stuff you gotta leave in the locker room at halftime. I know he was getting there was the tensions were rising there, but I mean you got to leave that stuff behind and not hurt your team more than it needs to be hurt right now when your roster is being stretched as much as it is with CCL and MLS. So I like what Montreal does. I know Stevie Caldwell is placing Montreal quite high in the Eastern Conference table for the end of the season during our preview show. So I could see them being a playoff team. And then out west with Vancouver, it's all about Benny Sartini. And if he's actually able to keep that new coach bump effect, obviously he's not the new coach anymore, but when he came in last season, you have players who are fed up at that current situation and they're willing to do anything to have something go positively or turn in a different direction. And he came in there with his enthusiasm. He came in there with his Tinkerman mentality and was able to move little pieces around. I don't like the way that they kind of had Ryan Gold and Russell Tybert up. It was kind of an inversion. They usually went with like the dual pivot last year and then had Gold just sitting underneath the dual striker. I don't like that tinkering. But that being said, I like Sebastian Berhalter's effort in the second half coming off the bench in place of Baldissimo. But there's too many players there, especially on Saturday, that just didn't look ready for game one of the season. And sure, game one and game two are against Eastern Conference foes and don't really affect your place of giving up points against Western-based teams. But at the same time, these are opportunities still for you to go and try and get a road point or put in a good performance or at least get yourself to that next level and better game shape. So I don't like how Vancouver played or approached that game at all. Some of it was injury related, like Brian White. If it was game 28 out of 34 and they're trying to make the playoffs, he would have played on Saturday. But at the same time, I just don't like the buy-in to Sartini's plan that he laid out for them on Saturday, and maybe that forces them to shift back to more of the two guys at the back. But like the fact that Leo Wusu wasn't featured kind of shows that maybe his training camp and preseason didn't go as well as expected, and that's a player that Sartini relied heavily upon down the stretch last year, playing in the mid. And the fact that he's not even there on game one, it to me is a bit of a warning sign, and just based on their overall effort after match day one, a bit of a warning sign. That being said, it is game one out of 34, so they could completely change things around this weekend at home against New York City.
True enough. Since it feeds so well into my question, which of the three Canadian sides do you think had the best offseason? And conversely, which one do you think had the worst offseason?
Ooh, power rank.
I think Vancouver had the worst.
Okay.
That being said, they were able to stabilize Brian White. But anytime you lose Max Crepeau, like that's one of the best shot stoppers. That's one of the best keepers in the entire league. And I don't know how you replace it. I think in those early moments against Columbus, like they concede, I think it was 8 minutes in, Miguel scoring for Columbus.
Yep.
You would have Max Crepeau yelling at defenders, but also at the same time trying to calm everyone down. At the same time, I don't think Thomas Hasal is there yet. Can he get there? Sure. But he's been handed the number one job without having to actually fight for the number one job. Max Crepeau left. I don't know if they have plans to bring in a more experienced backup keeper. It sounds like they may not go that route, but at the same time, that's a lot of pressure to put on a young Thomas Hasal, who only has 16 appearances. Yeah, 16 appearances with the Whitecaps across all comps. I mean, that's a lot to ask from him. And there were those hectic moments in pretty much every single match last year when the Whitecaps played. There was always that, rare times there wasn't, but in every single match, there was those hectic moments where Max Crepeau made that save, or a defender was able to cover him off after he came out to challenge, who was able to clear the line. But there was those little rallying moments, and that's what was crying out in the first game. That being said, like I said, that's something that Thomas Hasal can add to his game, and we'll see if that does happen. But at the same time, I think there needs to be a little bit more, whether it's in the form of experienced keeper, but someone else pushing him other than him feeling like the weight of the entire team is on his shoulders. But I mean, he's a very bright keeper, decent shot, like decent to good shot stopper. So I have no concerns on that end for them. Montreal, I think, is in the middle. Montreal did what they needed to do. They're never going to go out to get that, or they haven't been able to go out to get that big goal scorer. I mean, like, you look at Piatti when he was there during his days, like he was massively underrated for what he did for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah.
And so I mean, like Didier Drogba, like all those types of little things, like they did what they needed to do. They know that if they have Romel Kyoto, Mason Toy playing at a decent to high level, walking tours, being able to chip in Mihailovic, if he's able to even replicate anything close to what he did last season, they're not going to be a team that goes and fills the net every single match, but they're the team that can go and score that important one or that important second goal. And then on the back end with Camacho there, Kamal Miller, the link ship and the friendship that Kamal and Alistair Johnston have is good. Joel Waterman's another guy who I think not a everyday starter, but he's a guy who can come off the bench and provide that depth, or when your roster's stretched, I think he's a guy that can come in there. But you look at the midfield, even Kone, like we'll see what he's all about. Like, he's just a youngster.
Yeah, we sure are.
If you have Wanyama there next to you and you're able to see how Wanyama uses his presence, Wanyama looks in my opinion, compared to last season and the one before, in fantastic shape.
Yep, best
so
he's ever looked. Absolutely.
I think that's a positive for them. And then in goal, like, I know the guys were having fun during the halftime show because Breza was just playing the ball out as if he was just another center back out there on goal kicks. So I think there's a lot of positives there. But when you look at the big splash signing, it's obviously TFC. And that being said, does that translate to Montreal or Toronto finishing higher than Montreal in the standings? It might not, but as far as biggest off seasons and most important off seasons, I think that definitely for TFC, because they have a lot further, as you said at the beginning, a low bar, low expectations to start the year. They have a lot higher to climb to get back into a playoff spot where Montreal just missed out on final day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, watching that game, it's actually bizarre to think this off season that Montreal left Victor Wanyama unprotected in the MLS expansion draft. And to see the type of player that he is, the role that he's playing for this squad, it's honestly mind-blowing for me that happened. I mean, we're not privy to all of the financial details that goes into signing a contract like that, so maybe that played a role. But it's bizarre just to see overall. Kelcey, go ahead. Yeah, I know you want to chime in.
It isn't, but I mean, if you're looking at Victor Wanyama of last year or before, like, would you risk that? Like how you said, the financial aspect of it. Would you risk that if it's not a motivated Wanyama? Obviously, back when the draft goes down, they don't know that Wanyama is on a mission to maybe restore his stature as a, in my opinion, could be one of the best midfielders in the entire league if he lives up to what his billing and his previous billing was. So if you don't have that guarantee, or you're not privy to that, like you were saying, Michael, like, then I don't know if I'm an expansion side that I go and attach my wagon to that. But I think now maybe when you look at Champions League, now it's like, oh, you missed out, but hindsight. I mean, hindsight, right?
Yeah, always 2020. Mitch?
Well, yeah, I think we'll let Kelcey go here. Unless, do you have one more question there, Mike?
I can always come up with questions.
All right, no. We'll let Kelcey go.
Let me ask you guys a question. I don't know. Sorry, I was in the waiting room. The biggest weekend, and it can be team or player. Who had the biggest weekend? Like, are you saying like Carlos Vela?
Okay.
Vela, absolutely, Vela.
Like Carlos Vela on Thursday saying, "Hey, I'm out of contract at the end of June," and then by the 50th minute, he's got himself a hat trick. And by Taylor Twellman says they're already penning his extension papers.
I got one.
Is it him, or is there a team that kind of jumps off the screen?
I got Dom Dwyer. Come on.
Yeah, that's true. That hurts. That hurts so bad.
Wow,
good shout, Mike.
Absolute goal, like beauty of a goal. He got a shot on target, boys. And that's something we haven't been able to say in over a year.
How frustrating was that for TFC, not only the players last year, but the fan base as well, to see him struggle the way he did last year and then get sent, bought out, all that other stuff, ends up in Atlanta and scores what I thought was one of the better goals of the weekend too.
Oh, it was a banger. It was a super banger. It was unbelievable. That and then just to smash it. I mean, fantastic. Yeah. Mike wins. Mike wins. That's the winner. I mean, from a TFC perspective, there's nothing worse than the dagger, the Dom Dwyer dagger. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Ali Curtis is somewhere in the MLS Next Pro offices going like, "Come on, man, what the heck?" I'll give a shout to Austin FC as well. Like, it was nice to see them finally, bag a bunch of goals and a good start to their second season in the league.
But who did they play against, Mitchell? Who did they play against?
I mean, that's fair. That's why I'm not mentioning that.
There were so many times the Austin fan base showed up last year because the promise was they were supposed to be a little bit more attacking minded, and it didn't translate. So I mean, you can only beat what's in front of you, and they thumped them on opening day. So you got to give them full marks for that.
Yeah. But I mean, one of my favorite things is every team at the beginning of the season, the first press conference is always, we're going to play high octane attacking soccer. And that lasts maybe a week before they're bunkering down because they're not as good as they need to be to play high octane attacking soccer. Yeah. So, but
I'll let you guys go in a second, but that triggered some PTSD to how Chris Armas approached last season with the team starting in Orlando of all places and with the roster that he had. And it's like selling high.
Well, Kelcey, look at the injury report on opening day for TFC. We had Iowa Canola who suffered his injury last year, so no one. And look at the injury report on opening day last year. There was like 10 names on that list for the first 7 weeks.
To be fair, Mike, we had at least 40 times more players on the roster at the start of last year than this year. So law of averages.
Not nearly the names to
to be fair, like if anybody gets injured, they're gonna have to hire me. So that's I
thought you were going to Nottingham.
I can multitask, guy. It's just a plane ride. Like, give me. Yeah, I am the new Richie. Yes, that's my middle name. I forgot what I was going to say, and it was witty. So you might as well let Kelcey
go. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me. Awesome. All the best.
It was awesome. Thanks for stopping by. We'd love to have you on again. Good luck for the next round of games, and we'll talk soon. Cheers.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah, well, Kelcey,
there we go.
You did mention the injury report, and I think that's actually a good place to build into Toronto FC's 1-1 draw with FC Dallas, because for me, the pivotal moment of that match is you see Chris Mavinga go out at half, and I mean, everyone's first reaction is, how did this guy already get hurt?
Yeah,
but we find out after the game. Yeah, exactly. We find out after the game that's not the case. This was a tactical decision from Bob Bradley, and really an early indication of what Bob Bradley brings to Toronto FC.
Love it. I love
it. A guy
and
who's willing to like cut anyone at any moment. And it did change the game. Now, obviously, there's a couple factors here. One, if you write off Chris Mavinga after one good or one bad performance, we wouldn't have an MLS Cup.
True enough. True enough. So, hey, remember his debut at Atlanta? We were all like, "What were we thinking?" Like he had a howler of a debut.
So I don't think that Shane O'Neill is the guy yet, but I also think that there's positives in the fact that last year Chris Mavinga is not having a good performance. Chris Armas or Javier is looking down their bench and they're like, who we putting in here now? Now Bob Bradley actually has options. I'll let you guys build on that. But that for me was the turning point in that game.
I mean, subbing out your center back is never. It's not in the list of best practices in terms of halftime subs, right? I know enough about the game to know that. So it's always a surprise to me when that sort of thing happens. But he was asking to get subbed out. He was all over the place. I mean, he was doing no favors to our new converted attacking fullbacks. He was leaving them exposed far too often, chasing the ball. So, I'm going to keep my eye on him moving forward because, if anybody, he may have suffered the most as a consequence. And this is weird to say because he didn't feature a lot last year. But now I feel like he doesn't know what to do on the team. And he's trying to be the guy when he can let Salcedo be the guy and go back to being the Mavinga that we know and love, which is the slide tackle pain merchant that just comes, uses his pace to really, really, really save our skins when necessary, as opposed to that sort of holding center back in the more classical style. And I wonder if you agree with that.
I actually thought it's the opposite.
Wouldn't be Mike if you didn't. Let's go.
There you go.
There's that divide line. Let's go.
Yeah.
I thought there are times in the game where it was just a brain lapse, honestly, where he just leaves runners. He kind of loses his positioning. There were a couple times in that first half where I thought Dallas could have been ahead, maybe 3-0 by the end of that first half. And a lot of that I'm pointing the finger at Chris Mavinga because of just where he is on the field and what exactly he's doing during that time. He was, as you mentioned, Jeff, I agree with you that he was a little bit all over the pitch. That's kind of the way that Chris Mavinga feels. But I want to challenge Chris Mavinga if I'm the coach, and I want to say, like, be a force at the back, but also don't be afraid to take control and move the ball up on your own. I thought too often his decision making was to kind of leave Jacob Schaffelberg and hang him out to dry there on the left back and play that easy ball to Jacob when he could perhaps get his head up, look forward, and play a ball through the middle of the park that opens the press and the defense a little bit more. So that's something that I want to see. In terms of Bob Bradley, let's get his quote here quickly on Chris Mavinga, and he was asked about the couple of changes that he made at halftime, and he said, Chris, one of the biggest thing we continue to challenge Chris with is just his ability to stay more tuned into everything that goes on around him at times. It still means that he loses certain things. Building out of the back in the first half, we had a few moments where I didn't think our decisions were good, and we felt it was just a way of changing the game at halftime. So that was Bob's impression of Chris. So I guess moving forward, we can kind of see it through that lens and kind of pay attention to actually how Chris adjusts his game moving forward. But as you mentioned there, Mitch, off the bat, it's definitely not something we're going to write him off for. This was a guy 2 years ago was nominated for MLS Defender of the Year. I think he finished fifth or sixth in voting that year. This is a guy we know he's quality when he's on his game. Now, obviously, with the new manager coming in, is he the type of center back that the manager loves? I mean, I'll tell you, before Bob got here, Chris Mavinga was in his plans. So I don't foresee that changing just because of one game.
Yeah.
And let's kind of pay attention to how he bounces back. But perhaps more importantly, come on, guys, Shane O'Neill. And this is a guy who TFC haven't had for a very long time. A guy who could comfortably step in off the bench. I think he did exactly what he did for the Seattle Sounders for years, and that's provide capable minutes when, as Kelcey kind of mentioned, when your roster is stretched out a little bit. And that's exactly, in my opinion, what he did. He proved that he's a serviceable MLS player, and that's all you really need next to someone like Carlos Salcedo, who is absolutely fantastic at the back.
He's a rock star.
So I thought Shane O'Neill's stock definitely increased a little bit over the weekend.
As silly as this sounds, he's a defender who defends, and Toronto FC hasn't had enough of those defenders. That's the mentality, right? Like you need at least a couple guys, and this isn't just a Toronto FC thing. I think this is a thing in world football as a general. As attacking play gets more and more emphasized as kind of the key part of the game, is there aren't enough players in world football in general who look at the defensive side of the ball first, and having a guy like that is very important at several times, and he's a guy who does that. Like there was no nonsense from his game, and that's what you love to see from a new Toronto FC center back.
And what's wild is in a couple of weeks, this guy's going to be the fourth center back on the Toronto FC depth chart. Come on, do you want to talk about depth on a squad? That's quality right there.
That's quality. I want to talk about how great this is having Bob Bradley as a coach. I mean, that quote was unbelievable. We're going to learn so much by osmosis from how honest and brutal Bob is with our squad, in a way that we won't get just, listening to Pep talk about City if we're not City diehards, right? These are our guys. And we've got like a genius tactician now giving us insight into our guys. And I love it so much. It makes me so happy. But,
it's crazy, Jeff. Chiming in quickly. It's crazy what a reputation does. when you're a coach. Like look at the mindset of TFC fans when Chris Armas first came to the club. They were scrutinizing and questioning everything. I mean, me, of course, I was doing the same. Like I was scrutinizing, questioning
everything. He had me at high press.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But we had to fight to give him that sort of benefit of the doubt. Whereas Bob Bradley comes in and it's a natural respect, I guess, you have for someone with that credibility. And I think that's something this team definitely needed. Heading into especially this season after what was last year. But I thought this was a move that was probably a year too late. But obviously you can't do that when he's under contract. So just want to point that out. That's amazing how perception changes when you have that kind of pedigree, as you mentioned, Jeff.
Yep. I mean, Mitch threw it out before. Guys that impressed and really, really elevated their stature, which means we've got to talk about Jaquil Marshall-Rutty because he was unbelievable. I know we're going to get to Jaden Nelson, who I thought was also just insanely good, but Jaquil was named to the team of the week, and he was the subject of some trade rumors in terms of TFC setting a price tag for him at $20 million, which is unbelievable. And must be the knockoff effect must be confidence for the player. I mean, that's when your club vouches for you at that rate, the sky's the limit, right, guys?
Yeah, well, TSN's Matthew Shinetti with that report, and we all know Jaquil Marshall-Rutty spent the summer training with the likes of Arsenal and Liverpool, so impressive company there. And yeah, I mean, look, it was a rocky start to the game for JMR. He was very much at fault, I thought, for that first goal in terms of the space he left on the flank for the ball whipped in. And what was interesting was I thought FC Dallas tried to exploit him after that. I thought they tried to attack his side as much as possible, and he very quickly learned from that mistake and had a solid performance overall, which I think is a huge credit. And if we're talking about, again, like little moments that kind of show the game as a whole, it was the same with Toronto FC in some ways. Last year they get punched in the mouth 9 minutes into the game, and there's no way they're getting any sort of results out of it. This year, it's an early indication that this team has a little more substance to it, a little more fight back, and they're not just gonna lay down and lose points on the road if they get scored on that easy. Because I think all of us see that early goal and we go, this is gonna be a long day with these young fullbacks, and also, this is just last year all over again.
And yet I think I'm the only person in the prediction league that said that won my own bonus point, which was that we were going to concede in the first 10, 15 minutes. I think there were moments for both. Schaff had a bit of a howler, but then that slide tackle to save a clear attempt on goal. I mean, that was a bit of a redemption tour for our man Schaffelbach. So, I guess in a roundabout way, let's talk the fullbacks. Like you're sort of getting there. I was impressed because let's be honest, we expected mistakes. It's not easy to do this, and I think all signs point to this experiment at least allowing for more games to prove itself out, to prove the concept.
Yeah, I think as any young player adjusting to a new position, Jeff, as you're kind of alluding to it, as Jonathan Osorio said after the game, like they're gonna make mistakes, like they're gonna learn on the fly, and that's never tough for anyone to do, let alone a 17-year-old. And what's Jacob now, 21 years old, to adjust to new positions there. I thought Jaquil was fantastic in my opinion. I thought his quality showed in terms of the way that he thinks the game, which in my opinion is still the biggest asset of his overall skill set. I mean, this guy's playing and seeing things no 17-year-old in Major League Soccer should be seeing. He's playing the game like a veteran out there, and I even thinks he sees the game ahead of time as some veterans on the team. And I think his ability with the ball is just unbelievable as well. His ability to keep the ball in tight areas, again, his decision making with the ball to do it quickly and read the game overall is great. And what should he have deserved a team of the week honors? I mean, probably not. Like, you probably could find a way to you could probably find a way to fit someone else in there, but he wasn't. that bad at all. But maybe it is a little bit of marketing by the league to kind of inflate their next up and coming superstars value. But I don't
Credibility,
think
transfer value.
I don't think a team of the week mentioned kind of does that, in my opinion, at least. I
It's
don't
going to
think
give him
a
some
team in Europe's
confidence.
going to
So
be
thanks,
like, I'll pay you
MLS.
an extra million
Mhm.
for the team of the week nod. But I again, I thought Jaquil was excellent in the game, and I'm excited to see kind of how he builds into this role moving forward. I don't think this is what's crazy about this is I don't think Jaquil potentially would have been starting on this team had it not been for a couple of moves that transpired in the offseason.
Mhm.
And now that this opportunity has sort of fallen into his lap, I think he's the guy who's going to benefit the most overall on the team. And we've been saying
I
for
love
a
it.
while this kid needs minutes, and he looks ready out there, in
Who's
my
going to get
opinion.
him?
And
Yep.
doing that while adjusting to a new position as well is pretty remarkable. And I mean, I never saw Jaquil being a right back in this league, but credit to Bob Bradley, who's willing to put Jaquil Marshall-Rudy at a right back position for your starting 11. Like that's to me is that speaks volumes. And it's, you want to talk about confidence, Jeff, that instills confidence in you as a player when your head coach is willing to trust you at a new position and all of that. And so that was great. And same thing with Schaffelberg on the left-hand side. Bob Bradley said after the match, he grew into the game, which is really impressive, especially when he picked up a yellow card in the 17th minute or something like that. And in my opinion, a questionable yellow card, but nevertheless, he still picked up the yellow card. And from that point on, maybe a little bit further on, like he looks solid out there as well. So there will be more competition coming in to that left back spot, center back spot for Jacob Schaffelberg's position, but he has an opportunity right now to, I guess, at least adjust to that position and add it to his arsenal, because this is a guy, in my opinion, could be a Swiss Army knife for this team moving forward as sort of a super sub and bringing in fresh legs off the bench, and whether that's on the right wing or, even through the middle, perhaps. He's a guy who has the legs to make an impact off the bench, in my opinion, come the second half of the year.
What both of those guys have, which is something you obviously can't teach, is that recovery speed.
Yeah.
And
oh my God,
that's
so
incredibly important, I think, for a young fullback or for anyone learning that position. Because I mean, we have point proof in Alphonso Davies, who was a guy who, when he got moved to fullback, obviously at the very start had some moments of defensive lapses and
moments.
And the same could certainly be said of Schaffelberg and Jaquil Marshall-Rudy in that game. But having that speed allows you to learn a little bit faster in a sense of you can just get back on guys and shut them down. We saw how many times Alphonso Davies do that to people, and we saw Schaffelberg do a very good Alphonso impression on that tackle in the second half. So I think that's something that gives them a lot of value. And you mentioned confidence, Mike, and shifting gears to your boy Jaden Nelson. I mean, how important? I mean, I would obviously want to get this from the player, but I think it was so important. One, him going to Anderlecht this summer and getting to play against his peers and just to remind himself that, I am good. I am this, European quality player who can compete with the best of my peers. Not only that, but now we talked about last season when, this guy's sitting on the bench and we don't know what's going on while Chris Armas leads this team into the season. Now he's getting this chance with Bob Bradley, who's bigging him up all the time in the media, who's giving him those opportunities. And now he looks like that confident guy again who can beat pretty much anyone.
Yeah, I think you're bang on there. It's a combination of a couple of those things. And one, I don't believe the coaches last year necessarily believed in Jaden Nelson's ability at that time. I don't think they thought that Jaden was ready. And obviously they showed that they didn't think that he was ready with
I think we lost Mike. I think he went mute on us. Mike, he went mute on us. Yeah.
You got me back? Yeah. So I think, again, like, I don't think the coaches had faith in him last year, and obviously he didn't play that much last season, even though I believe he anticipated to be playing a lot more than he actually did. And second of all is, I believe he actually won his spot this year.
Yep.
Coming into this year, I'm not sure if Bob actually had Jaden on his radar instead of the light that he has him on right now. And I think Jaden has kind of turned a lot of heads because of his play in preseason and the way that he came into camp. And it feels a lot better as a player when you're earning your spot. And I think he's doing that on a daily basis. And obviously comes down to kind of how the games go. And I thought, as I tweeted out, that was easily his best game in a Toronto FC shirt.
Agreed.
Taking guys on, being more direct. I thought his decision making for the most part was great, and his quality obviously showed. And when Jaden Nelson's at his best, he's trying those different things, and he's pulling some of them off, and which he did. And one thing that stood out to me, how about that ball to Achara? I don't know if you guys
remember that. It was stupid. That was stupid.
Stephen Caldwell made the producers replay that ball like 5 times. He's like, show the data Jaden Nelson ball again.
Yeah. It was absolutely gorgeous. I think he's gonna have an interesting partnership with Jesus because they're both very intelligent footballers and they can do interesting things. And I think I low-key think that might be a partnership and a chemistry that develops that will be really, really good for the club.
Well, what he's playing for right now, Jeff, is, I mean, he's only a placeholder on that left wing spot, as we all know, until July 1. But what he's playing for is potentially a spot on that right wing, because this is a guy who he can play across the front line, whether it's number 10 or right winger or left winger. And DeAndre Kerr, I mean, I thought he was okay. I don't think he had the best game, obviously. He was subbed off at halftime, but Jaden Nelson could be a guy that potentially competes with DeAndre Kerr for that right wing spot come July 1. So if he continues down this path, it's a good problem for Bob Bradley to have. Is it'll be tough to kind of take Jaden Nelson out of that 11.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the Toronto FC 11, Mike, you've been hinting at this literally all show, so let's talk a little bit about the rumors. Fabrizio Romano reporting, of course, among many others, that Domenico Crescito has signed a contract with Toronto FC and will be joining the club shortly. We were anticipating him joining the club potentially in July, but it sounds like changes within Genoa will bring him here shortly. Now, he's 35 years old, obviously Italian international fullback. But Mike, it seems like the way you've been hinting at it, Toronto FC sees him more as a central defender, unless there's another move here that I'm not aware of that might be in the works as well.
No, and I think that's it. It's a guy who can play either center back or fullback. If Bob Bradley decides to go 3 at the back there, he can easily slot in on that left hand side, and it's something that adds a little bit more versatility to their lineup. You look over the weekend and look at what happened when Chris Mavinga came off. Carlos Salcedo seamlessly shifted over to the left and perhaps arguably even looked better on the left. Not that he was looking bad on the right either.
Nope.
So it gives Toronto FC more options at the back. If they decide to deploy him as a left back, so be it. He'll do fantastic there, and I'm excited to see the way this team shapes up come the arrival of Insigne in the summer. As we know, these guys are good friends, and that left-hand side is going to be a lot more fun. Like right now we have Jaden and Jacob Schaffelberg, who I thought Dallas made a point of pressing that side and closing down those options. And I thought they gave away the ball far too cheaply at times. And you think about the upgrade Lorenzo Insigne and Domenico Crescito are over. Yep. No offense to Jacob and Jaden, but that's a massive upgrade. It makes this team a lot more dangerous. So I'm just excited to see kind of the way that they use him. And I'll add is I believe he'll be coming over on a free transfer as well, which is important to note, especially with budget things.
Yep. Yeah. All that general and targeted allocation money just burning a hole in our collective pockets. Just we need to spend it, and then whatever the case might be.
Well, speaking of that, what's really wild, Jeff, is you guys saw the rule that came out, right? Where there's now 11 international roster spots that Canadian teams are allowed. And I'll say this, I don't think TFC are done, guys.
They're also worth 250,000 Garber bucks on the open market at least. So
that's true.
We can build quite a war chest there if we wanted to. Correct me if I'm wrong. It doesn't last in perpetuity. The you have to spend at least one of them within the season, or it disappears. Correct?
Sorry, one more time.
Yes. Gam or Tam, one of them can't. You can't just bank it for forever. Like you've got to spend it by a certain amount of time.
Yeah, I think it specifies whenever you do make the deal, like if it's 2022 general allocation money or 2023 target allocation target allocation money actually isn't tradable. So it's only general allocation money. It's the years are specified as to exactly when.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The one final thing I'll say on the Criscito move that I do like is obviously we've talked a lot at length on this show about how young the other fullback options are. So you have this veteran international.
Law of averages. There we go.
Italian. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now the average age is like 26. Now that
exactly. We get a T-ba and our average age goes all the way up as well.
Yeah, but you've got obviously, between Caden Chung and JMR and Schaffelberg and
Trasso.
Trasso. That's the last guy I'm forgetting. You've got an incredibly young group of fullbacks who now get to learn from a world class, at one point at least, fullback. So that's
good.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yep, that's good stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Let's chat quickly about the home opener coming up the Saturday for Toronto FC. The New York Red Bulls coming into town, 3-1 win over San Jose in their opener. They just added English forward Ashley Fletcher on loan, a 26-year-old who played for West Ham, Middlesbrough, and Watford. So we don't know if
Man United Academy product.
Good ad. Yeah, There you go. Lewis Morgan as well from Inter Miami.
He looked good over
and
the
Caden
weekend.
Clark in one of the funnier moves, I think, in MLS history, which is the fact that they had to pay a whole ton of money to buy back their own player on loan. Yeah.
Ouch for that.
Luke. I don't know how to say that name. Anyway, they brought in another designated player, 25-year-old Brazilian attacker from Legia Warsaw.
Nice.
As I said, as a DP. So a lot of changes to New York this season. They'll be an interesting side and a good test for Toronto FC at home.
Absolutely. And we get to go.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's going to be the first time, I believe, full capacity, if I'm not mistaken there.
It is.
Other than for Canada, obviously, but obviously, yeah.
So that's exciting. Yeah, aside from Canada, of course, and we're talking about Hamilton as well. Because come on, that was pretty much full capacity.
Pretty much full capacity.
But that's exciting. I mean, the players have talked about it. BMO Field wasn't the same last year. I mean, how can you argue with that? And interested to see kind of what crowd shows up there on Saturday afternoon, 2 p.m. kickoff, and just shifting things over to the Red Bulls a little bit. Their manager, Gerard Struber, he was talking a lot before their last match about how this team needs signings. I mean, this guy was complaining about essentially complaining about the squad and their quality. And lo and behold, there they go. They go out there and they, I guess they make him pretty happy. They picked up a win. I believe it was against the San Jose Earthquakes.
Yeah,
it was
on the road too. So which was a little bit more impressive as well. And TFC historically, I mean, we know what it's like playing against the Red Bulls. It typically doesn't go well for Toronto FC. So maybe Bob Bradley has a plan against obviously what's going to be a very energetic and high pressing team, and it's gonna be an important one to kind of set the tone at home at BMO Field, because that's what you want to make as your fortress. We know how hard it is to win on the road in Major League Soccer, and we know how important these home matches are. So let's see if TFC can kind of get off the right foot here at BMO Field, and hopefully it's going to be in front of an energetic and loud crowd, is something we've missed for a very long time.
I have faith. I absolutely have faith. I'll certainly be energetic and loud. So there you go.
There we go.
Let's finish up with a shout out to Oso and his decade of excellence, as Mitch so capably wrote out on the rundown. I like it. It should come in a different font. I mean, what can you say about Oso? Like, honestly, it's been such a pleasure to watch him. I think it was one of those TSN MLS highlight shows. And I can't remember the moment, but Oso gave an interview and it was just so interesting because it was an older clip of Oso playing. And I mean, he's rounding into such a superb soccer player. It really is so wonderful to witness. And it's been so low key and just constant improvement. I mean, this guy, This guy scores big goals for the Canadian men's national team. He scores big goals for Toronto FC. You know, remember when the ball ending up on his foot in the box was a kiss of death for goal scoring, and now he's figured out how to pass the ball into the net and has like the deftest, softest touch and is doing back heels. Like, it's crazy. I love the man. He's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to define the decade of excellence, Jonathan Osorio has now scored with that opening goal against FC Dallas in 10 straight seasons for Toronto FC. So, incredible statistic there. And I think a player who we're going to look back on as one of the really, really important players in terms of the Canadian men's national team and Canadian soccer transition, because this is pretty much the lone guy who's ever been, you know, a consistent Canadian on Toronto FC. Yep. He's been through, like we said, 10 years of just being solidly, obviously he's had some moments where he's been out of the lineup, but he's been a pretty key player for Toronto FC for 10 straight seasons, which is a massive, massive credit to him on a team when, you know, that really hasn't been the case. And we've bemoaned that fact for so many years. And now he's done the same thing for the national team. You know, he's become pretty much a starting level player on the Canadian men's national team and one of the leaders there as well. So, an incredible legacy that I think Oso will leave behind, and he's got some big moments left in him because, you know, if we want to talk about Oso, that's a big game player. We talk about some of the goals he scored. This is one of the few guys who has 2 goals now at the Azteca. It's some big performances over the years. So this is a guy that I think is going to leave a lot in terms of Canadian soccer.
Absolutely. Here's to another decade of excellence to Jonathan Osorio. I hope he can do 2 decades of excellence. Absolutely.
Yeah, you're bang on with that sentiment, Mitch. I mean, this guy is literally one of our own. Grew up here, came through the Toronto FC Academy, has developed into the serious MLS professional and really good professional on the international stage, as well as we've all touched on. And What's wild is kind of how his role has evolved here down the years. Is he's gone from being that guy who's breaking in and defying all the odds as a Canadian in Major League Soccer to now someone who's an ambassador for this role, and a guy who all the young guys look up to. I mean, when you ask a young Canadian specifically, who's a player that's helped you out in the club, first guy who comes to mind is always Jonathan Osorio. You know, this is a guy who's walked the walk, and he's really important for some of the guys right now who are coming through and trying to replicate exactly the same sort of success that Ozo's had here with TFC. And it's great to see him start this year off with the first goal for Toronto FC in 2022. I don't think it could be more fitting than that Jonathan Osorio kind of scores that goal, because we talk about all the players that are coming in, all these international players, talk about Pozuelo kind of refining his form and Salcedo, and he's a Jimenez, but often a guy who kind of gets overlooked there is Ozo, and he just subtly reminded us, hey, I'm still here, I'm still going to do my thing, and and it's great to see him get off on a good mark.
Yeah. Well, we're still here. We'll still be doing our thing this season, but we're gonna end the show there for this week. Thank you so much, Kelcey, Brade, for taking the time to join us and, you know, asking us questions as well, turning the table. We always appreciate that when you obviously guests made this wider conversation. So that was awesome. And expect a little surprise bonus episode as well this week, as Jeff sat down with the kit nerd himself, Mark Hinckley of the Vocal Minority Podcast, to discuss the best and worst MLS has to offer in terms of fashion this season. Guys, on behalf of that man, Jeffrey P. Nesker, and Michael Singh, I'm Mitchell Tierney. Until next Tuesday.
Oh, all right. Now I just
until Jeff gets the outro going.